Mr. President, I rise in support of Senator Warner's motion in his argument for budget compromise and a budget conference that would enable us to find that compromise for the nation. During my campaign for the Senate, I heard over and over again, every time I would turn on the TV, it seemed like there would be someone, often a colleague from this body, arguing that the Senate hadn't passed a budget in 2 years or 3 years or 4 years. That was a point that was repeated over and over and over again. And then coming into this body, Mr. President, often sitting there in the presider's chair, I've heard that speech delivered from the floor of this body in January and February, often with charts demonstrating the number of days that it has been since the Senate has passed a budget. Now, we know that as part of the debt ceiling deal, a bill was passed, signed by the President, and so arguably even the claim of no Senate budget was inaccurate. But just taking that claim at its word, that the Senate hadn't passed a budget in 4 years, you would think that having passed a budget, everyone would be excited and would be willing now to move forward to try to find a compromise for the good of the nation. Instead, what we have is an abuse of a Senate rule, and individual senators standing up, and even though they had a chance to vote against a budget and to vote on 100 amendments about a budget, they're utilizing and really abusing a prerogative to block a budget conference. And for those listening to this who don't understand what a conference is, it's exactly what it sounds like. We passed a budget, the House passed a budget. The next step in normal business would be for the two budgets to be put in a conference and House and Senate members to sit down and, God forbid, listen to one another and dialogue and hopefully find compromise. That is all we are asking to do, to have a process of listening and compromise, and yet individual senators are objecting to blocking even the opportunity to have this discussion. On March the 23rd, this body passed a budget in accord with normal Senate order, and as we've seen over the past few days, the very group of people that criticize the Senate for not wanting to pass a budget have done everything they can and pulled out every procedural mechanism they can come up with to block the nation from coming up with a budget. This is an abuse of rules, and it is directly contrary to the members' claims now for years that they wanted to pass a budget. This is not just a matter of budget. It's not just a matter of numbers on a page. This is hurting our economy. There are some signs of economic progress these days. The unemployment rate is moving down. The stock market is moving up. The deficit projections going forward are moving down. But we know that we have a long way to go, and that there's more work to be done, and that finding a budget deal that addresses the components that Senator Warner mentioned is one of the things that can create confidence to additionally accelerate the economy. A budget deal will provide additional acceleration of the economy. And I have to ask the question, is that what people are really worried about? Are they worried about doing a budget deal that will accelerate the economy because it might not work to their particular political advantage? That is the concern that I have. Otherwise, why wouldn't they be true to the cause that they've had for the last few years to actually have a conference and find a deal? This is not only hurting our economy, and I'll say in conclusion, this is hurting our defense. The hearing that I had before coming to this meeting with Senator Kaine was a hearing of the Sea Power Subcommittee of Armed Services. And in that committee, we talked about the effect on the nation's security and on our defense that is being visited upon us as we are going through both budgetary challenges, including the sequester. We talked about the effect of sequester on what the witnesses called the platform, the shipbuilding, the assets that we need to keep us safe in a challenging world. We talked about these budget crises and how they hurt our planning. Because instead of planning in a forward-looking way, we're tying up all of our planning time to meet one self-imposed crisis after the next. We talked about the effect on readiness. Because of sequester, 1/3 of the Air Combat Command units in this country are standing down at a time when we may well need them today or tomorrow. And finally, most importantly, we talked about the effect of this budgetary uncertainty on our people, whether it's civilians being furloughed, whether it's private sector ship repairers getting warn notices because the ship repairing accounts can't be done consistent with the sequester, or whether it's people trying to make a decision about whether they want to make the military a career, and they look at Congress's unwillingness to provide budgetary uncertainty, and they decide that maybe it's not the best thing to do right now. Whether it's our platform, whether it's our readiness, whether it's our planning or whether it's our people, this sequester and these budgetary challenges and crises are hurting our ability to defend our nation at the very time when the world is not getting simpler or safer, but it's getting more challenging. I join Senator Warner in expressing disappointment. We've passed this budget. We passed it 46 days ago. We were here till 5 in the morning. We voted on 100 amendments. Everyone had a chance to have their say and have their vote. And guess what? After a conference, they'll get their say and their vote again. They'll have a chance to express their opinion. I urge my colleagues to rethink the position that they're on and to allow this budget to move into conference so we can do the business of the United States of America. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. President.